I'm like, look at these charts, Bitcoin is about to eat the world, right? Looks like it's going to become the super black hole of which it's going to outperform every single asset class on earth. I've never seen this before. Literally, I've never seen it. You know, we've seen gold might be dominant, but you might have bought copper instead, blah, blah, blah. There's nothing, not even most of the Amazon and stuff like that looks like it's going to outperform Bitcoin. So that's when I start saying, oh, this is the time to really go for it, because it's a waste of capital to put it into anything else. Now, I'm not coming at this with the philosophy, you know, the Bitcoinization of the world or anything else. I'm coming at here as a macro guy, saying I've never seen a more dominant opportunity in my entire lifetime. And if that is the case, it's time to really back your bet. The macro environment, you rightly alluded before, almost everybody I know has a personal allocation to Bitcoin. Dan Moorhead was first to understand that this was going to beat all other assets. And then it sucked in, you know, one after the other on. Probably John Burbank was probably next. And then, you know, Novo, and it just starts, you know, taking people in. These guys are the great speculators. And then some of those guys went, this Bitcoin thing's interesting. Now, most didn't get it in the beginning. They saw it as a trade. And then everybody saw it, started to see it. Oh my God, there's a parallel universe coming, and it's all going to generate alpha because there's no capital and not enough knowledge in the space, because everybody in it was a technologist and none of these macro guys were in it yet. So the macro guys went, here's an opportunity for us. I think gold goes up, but Bitcoin's going to go up a lot more. It's that moment when you have the light bulb moment is, fuck it, there's a time to stand up and be counted. This is your opportunity. Now, could I be wrong? Of course. But this looked to me like the best single macro opportunity I'd seen in my entire life. And, you know, I've seen a few good ones. You know, I had a great one with a bond trade, you know, last year and early into this year and stuff like that. But this is better than that. This is a once in a lifetime bet. And kind of, when you look at those charts, you see gold breaking down versus Bitcoin and stuff like that, you think, I understand portfolio diversification. I understand why it's important for many people. But I'm in a position where I can take this bet because A, I have income streams, B, I don't have any debt, and so therefore, and I'm not using leverage. So therefore, if it all goes tits up, I'm fine. But it's a very, very big bet. I've never taken a bet this big. But for me, I looked at the situation, all outcomes for me were, now it rarely happens. Let's say I'm right, deflation is persistent, the economy is worse than expected, we don't get rid of this whole economic mess until, let's say, Q3 next year. Okay, so the answer to deflation and slow economy is printing of money and more fiscal stimulus. Let's then push that aside and say, no, Raoul's a total idiot, he's completely wrong, the markets are right, inflation is everything. In an inflationary market, well, Bitcoin and gold do well. So here we've got a smile where the least likely outcome, which is everything just returns back to kind of 1.5%, 2% GDP growth, and we all forget it's just happened. That's not going to happen. Simply not going to happen. Maybe it does, but that's the risk that we all run in the Bitcoin position. So basically, inflation, deflation of any sort, if we look at all the past episodes, whether it was 2008, 2012 in Europe, when Europe almost went under, and then periodically afterwards, the central bank kept stimulating, didn't stop. They're not going to stop here. So that to me is a good setup. Okay, so I've now got a good case. So then the case is okay. At that point, I said, right, gold, Bitcoin, those are my main bets. I own some bonds because I'm a deflationist, and I had some dollars and some other trading positions. Okay, fine. So then what changed is the charts. You know, we'd all been looking at it, that the chart of Bitcoin was this beautiful, beautiful wedge pattern, triangle pattern, and it broke. So, of course, I'm a macro guy. I can see an opportunity. I can see a great chart. When I see one, I start saying, right, look, we've got to add to this. And, you know, I added obviously into the big sell-off as well, because I saw this pattern emerging. There's a hunch that I have, and it's only a hunch, hence why it's a much smaller position. There's a hunch that from all of my conversations around this whole space, that there is a massive amount of intellectual capital working in that particular space, because there's the flexibility of how Ethereum is based. And there's a load of flaws, like there's flaws about everything. So, I'm not saying it's a perfect world. I also don't think of Bitcoin and Ethereum as the same thing. Bitcoin to me is this pristine collateral. It's perfect. I don't need, now whether everybody builds the Lightning layer and all the other stuff on top, great. I own tons of Bitcoin, but I see the amount of intellectual capital that's going into the Ethereum space, and I'm thinking, there's a chance that something really, really big comes out of this. And so I think of it as a platform. And it's a very crude way of looking at it, but if I see a lot of people all building on one platform, then the probability, as a VC, the probability of one of those bets paying off huge, let's say DeFi ends up being on there and it becomes a real thing. Whatever it may be, who the hell knows? It could be intellectual property rights. I don't know, don't care. The point being is, I think there's a chance that Ethereum can have a larger market cap than Bitcoin. And that doesn't make it a better currency or a better investment. It's because by the nature of a platform versus an asset. Gold is the purest form of money that we've had, and it's a $10 trillion asset. The currency markets trade $4 trillion a day, and they're not in any way the same shape or form, but it's a bigger platform because more people use it. So the currency market overall is worth more. So I just think of it in those terms. And again, it's a very macro way of looking at it, which is not interested in the fight between the technologies and what tribe believes in what and how many coins can you measure and what's the total supply. It's like, okay, there is a chance here that this does really well, but I don't have enough conviction to make that my large bet. My large bet is Bitcoin because I have full conviction. Because Bitcoin's dominance as what it is now established. It's clear, it's institutionalized, that's over. So does it matter about the rise of these other things? That they're not in competition with each other, but human behavior is driving that. And I think as a macro guy, it's actually to my advantage, because if you call it shitcoins, I want to know about it. Because I know there's opportunity because you're being dumb. And you're being dumb, not that you might be right, but you've got a closed mind. And if I'm up against somebody with a closed mind, I can find an edge. And that's how I look at this. And I look at this whole space and I see it's a very narrative driven space. It's all behavioral driven. So use that behavior to your advantage, because within that is something interesting. I'm also intellectually interested in the future because that's what I do. And if somebody tells me not to look at Ripple, I will go and look at Ripple because you'll not tell me what to do. And I will find out myself what its flaws and what its potential benefits are and assess the probability myself. I may reach exactly the same conclusion as you. I may reach a completely different conclusion. But imagine if I do, and I don't own Ripple, I'm not getting into that fight, but let's assume I think it's got a 10% chance of becoming something much bigger, but the whole market is giving it a 0.5% chance. Well, that misalignment in risk reward is a huge opportunity.